Hey everyone, Dr. Frunke here with an exciting new update. This is going to be a follow-up video to my initial Moen Max Evolution by Millit knife consultation. If you go back in my channel a few months, maybe all the way back to late September, early October, I did a video on this exact knife. This is the Moen Max Evolution. It's a collaborative effort with Millit Knives, which is a machining company, a mid-tech company out of North Carolina that creates very high-quality knives, and they have been doing so kind of secretively for a good little while here. A few of the mid-techs that you've come to know and love out there were made by Millit with absolutely no recognition given to them. Now they've sort of come out and started to be a little bit more public, and they've certainly made some of their own knives now. The Torrent is out right now, and that's a really cool little knife right there. But this was a sort of the knife that brought a lot of attention to them. This is the Moen Max Evolution, as I mentioned. Jerry Moen is a Texas-based knife maker, and this was based off of his model called the Panther. And it's a very unique looking knife, and Millit really took it to the next level by offering multiple levels of customization options. Now, I mentioned in that video that this knife had cost somewhere around $750. That's completely inaccurate. I need to make a very clear statement that this knife cost $450. So I need to be very clear on what the price point was and what to expect. When I did that video, I had a couple of complaints about the knife. Number one, there was a lot of lock stick from the lock here. And number two, there were some inconsistencies around the edges of the carbon fiber inlays, as well as some very noticeable glue that was going on there. And so after making that video, Shane, who works over at Millit Knives, reached out to me through Instagram, and we had a very honest discussion about what's going on with the knife. And he was disappointed in himself and discussed with me that he was embarrassed and that he wanted to make it right. And he has done that. So I sent the knife back to him. Now, it has been a little while, but Millit has been quite busy with a few of their projects and some upcoming projects. But I sent the knife to them, and they have done some very impressive upgrades to the knife. So when we'll get into that when we break it down anatomically. I'm just going to give you some raw numbers here so I can remind you of what we've got in front of us. Overall, you're looking at just at a hair. You're looking at right at a 4-inch long blade with about 3.6, 3.7 inches of cutting length on there. The overall length, you're looking at right at 9 inches. The handle is 5 inches, and the grip area is about 4.6. So it's a full-size knife. I'll bring out a couple of other knives for a size comparison right now. Here's a Spyderco Paramilitary 2. Here is the Mannix 2. I'm going to bring out another knife right here. This is the Chris Reeve Knives Large Inkosi, and I'm actually going to put this upside down so you can see another product that Millit has, and that is this beautiful pocket clip that I've got on there. But the dimensions on the Inkosi are rather similar to what you're getting on this Millit Moen right here. And then one last comparison, I'll pull out my, let's see, Shirogorov F3 right here. Also a larger knife right there. So you're seeing that this is not a small knife by any means. In some of the pictures, I honestly thought this was a rather small knife, but indeed it is quite nicely big and hand-filling, so I do like that very much. However, they've managed to keep it quite slim. In this profile right here, the width is at 0.55 inches right there. Make sure that I'm zeroed. So a little over a half an inch, but it's not overly thick, and the blade stock is coming in at 124 thousandths. So they've made it a nice, robust folder, but it's a nice thin blade stock. So anything below about 0.13 or so is getting into a nice slicing category right there. A lot of overbuilt knives come in around the 0.16, 0.17 blade stocks, and that's when you start getting into the Apple axes, basically, rather than the real slicers. So let's take a look at some of the things here anatomically. The blade up front is absolutely beautiful. This is done in CTS XHP, as far as I know, and it's got a very unique, very interesting compound grind going on there. It reminds me a little bit of an Alan Elishewitz knife a little bit, I'm not going to lie, but it's got this very deep hollow going on here and then a flat area down towards the bottom. So I'm going to call this one the primary bevel, and this is a secondary bevel, and then the edge bevel. It does come quite sharp. This blade grind is not really going to be the most functional blade grind. It's rather obvious that the flat grind down at the bottom is a little bit wide. It would have been a better slicer perhaps if the entire thing had been hollowed out, but this is absolutely beautiful. And this is done by Millit. You know, this is Millit taking liberties with the design from Jerry Moen and creating something new and unique. And I absolutely appreciate that, and it's very beautiful. It just came back to me with a hyper sharp edge on it, so they certainly know what they're doing when it comes to sharpening. This blade was originally DLC coated right here, and so you can see that it remains on the top spine and this swedge over here for the sheep's foot style blade you've got going on. It's also underneath and around the flipper tab. It's very beautiful. The flats have a horizontal, likely hand-rubbed satin, and you can see that the Millit logo remains intact there, and there's still some DLC on the inside of the Moen logo right there. So it's a very elegant solution to this. It reminds me a little bit of my Koenig Arius, which is unfortunately across the room, and I'm not going to get up and go get it right now. Moving back to the pivot, this thing runs on ball bearings, and they must have tuned this ever so slightly since I got it, because the detent is very, very snappy now, and the deployment is very smooth. Disengaging the knife. Some people have asked me about the action of the knife on closure. This is not a free guillotine dropping knife, but it is a very smooth closure, a very steady amount of resistance that you get, and so it's safe. I think that some of the guillotine droppers are a bit dangerous sometimes, but when they're smooth and predictable like this, it's a nice thing. I would consider that almost a safety feature, and it's not that it is gritty or anything like that. It's just that there's that small amount of resistance that prevents it from guillotining closed, but you can certainly gently shake it closed like that over and over. It has a very unique pivot screw that's quite beautiful right there, in keeping with the theme of the knife with the satin finish on the black background. Moving back to the handles, this is where they've made some fairly significant improvements here. What Shane and his team have decided to do, previously this was an elevated inlay, and what they've decided to do in order to keep tolerances tighter, and they've done this on some of their newest ones, is actually sand down this knife all the way down, or sand down the inlay all the way down to the level of the knife itself. And what that has done is it actually reveals that there's a bit of a chamfered edge around where this inlay is gone, and you can see these beautiful hints of this bright satin polished look coming out. These are very nicely done, very low void, almost no void. I don't really see any significant voids in this marbled carbon fiber. It's mirrored on the backside right here. Another interesting upgrade that they've done to this knife, let me clean off some of my finger oils here, is that he satined the flat part of the pocket clip right here. Previously this was all black. I really think that sets this knife off quite nicely. It really brings that bright satin color, bright satin finish to the forefront as a beautiful thing. The action and deployment are quite nice. I talked about that they did a lot of revisions. Well, now there is absolutely no lock stick. You can hear just the slightest bit of the lock sort of friction, but it's not stick. It's the expected amount of retention that the frame lock should have, that the liner lock should have right there. It's a beautifully inset liner lock. I'm not sure if you can see in there, but it is secured into place. It's going to be an easily fixable piece. It's going to be stainless steel, riding on that stainless steel, and so it's a nice sort of innovation going on there, a sub-frame lock right there. Very nice. So what do I think of this knife? Well, this knife is significantly improved from where it was. I actually really, really like this knife now. The ergonomics are fantastic. The way that your fingers wrap around it, they fit into this nice little thumb divot right here. There's a tiny bit of jimping up top of the blade, but it's not ultra functional, but it's not uncomfortable, and it's very nice in the hand. I could see myself enjoying using this knife on a daily basis. Very comfortable, super nice action, and with all those little issues fixed, I really don't see any problems with this knife. I didn't mention there's a beautiful carbon fiber backspacer going on. So I think that Millit has really knocked knocked it out of the park on this one. I'm very pleased with their customer service. Even though it took a long time for it to get fixed, it was nice to see them reach out and make a huge effort to fix this knife, in going to the point where they removed the inlays and redid them completely. Well, what do you guys think of this knife? Leave some comments down below. Check out Millit Knives and their products and everything, and I'll be featuring more of their stuff on the channel soon. As always, guys, this is Dr. Frunky saying, take care.